Hello everyone, so I'm going to show you today the PTE Pearson practice exam, which is the version 3. So I'll show you, this is this test. I'm going to do it now, scored test C. Before starting the test, so I will recommend you to test your computer with a good microphone. I'm here now and I'm ready to start learning. I'm here now and I'm ready to start learning. So yeah, this is looking good. So make sure everything is linked and everything is fine working. So we'll go back and I'll start the exam and you can have a look. So I hope this will help for you. The main difference on this occasion was that the colonists were not just fighting against a king who was determined to use his own prerogative. They were also fighting against a parliament which believed that it alone should raise taxes and control revenues, rights which had been won in the previous century. The main difference on this occasion was that the colonists were not just fighting against the king who was determined to use his own prerogative. They were also fighting against a parliament which believed that it alone should raise taxes and control revenues, rights which had been won in the previous century. A scientist's evidence is thought to be reliable because it will have been tested and verified at every stage. This is not, of course, infallible, as scientists are subject to human error as much as the rest of us. A scientist's evidence is thought to be reliable because it will have been tested and verified at every stage. This is not, of course, infallible, as scientists are subject to human error as much as the rest of us. The most obvious change is that 46% of the college's undergraduates are now women. When I went there, it was only the third year that women had been admitted and about 70% of students were male. The most obvious change is that 46% of the college's undergraduates are now women. When I went there, it was only the third year that women had been admitted, and about 70% of students were male. As we progress into the 21st century, communications are becoming faster and faster. Think of the million of different media images you are bombarded with every day. It is important now to be able to read and make sense of those images, as it has been to be able to read ordinary text. As we progress into the 21st century, communications are becoming faster and faster. Think of the millions of different media images you are bombarded with every day. It is an important how to be able to read and make sense of those images. Has been to be able to read ordinary text. In the past, wars have been led to inflation and higher commodity prices. Fighting disrupts trade and prevents raw materials from being shipped from one country to another. In Second World War, Britain, a banana was the height of luxury. In the past, wars have led to inflation and higher commodity prices. Fighting disrupts trades and prevents raw materials from being shipped from one country to another. In Second World War Britain, a banana was the height of luxury. Globalization refers to a set of changes rather than a single change. Many of these changes are social, cultural, and political rather than purely economic. And one of the main drivers, in addition to the global marketplace, globalization refers to a set of changes rather than a single change. Many of these changes are social, cultural, and political rather than purely economic. And one of the main drivers in addition to the global marketplace is the communications revolution.
An understanding of mathematics is vital for most science subjects.
An understanding of mathematics is vital for most science subjects.
If we work on this together, we'll get through it quickly.
If we work on this together, we will get through it quickly.
The new law professor used to work for the World Bank.
The new law professor used to work for the World Bank.
Many environment experts are very concerned about the future of our planet.
Many environment experts are very concerned about the future of our planet.
The graph shows the percentage of people who smoke according to gender.
The graph shows the amount of people using to smoke according to the gender. Fuck, it's fucked it.
The meeting is always on the third Wednesday of the month.
The meeting is always on the third Wednesday of the month.
We can go anywhere, do anything, achieve any height.
We can go anywhere, do anywhere, achieve any height.
Construction of the Empire State Building in New York was completed in 1931.
Construction of the Empire State Building of New York completed in 1931.
People under 70 have a higher quality of life than those over 70.
People under 70 have higher quality of life than over 70.
The area of Canada is more than 3.8 million square miles.
The area of Canada is more than 3.8 million square miles. Traffic, Great Britain. This picture shows the road traffic in Great Britain. So the y-axis shows the billion number of vehicles in kilometers and x-axis shows the number of years since 1952 to 2005. Overall, we can see all motor vehicles and cars and taxis are mentioned here. All motor vehicles are showing a major impact since 1984 to 2000, while cars and taxis are also showing a major impact since 1952 to 1992. Overall, we can understand road traffic in Great Britain is increasing year by year. Thank you for listening, and these all motor vehicles are shown here. This graph shows the Economic and Social Research Council figure 1 UK unemployment rate 1971 to 2006. In x-axis we can see the number of years since 1971 to 2005, and in y-axis we can see the number of percentages. In 1985 there is a higher impact of unemployment rate which is around 12% in 1987, and also we can see it is only 4% in 1971. Overall, we can understand the unemployment rate in UK is increasing day by day since 1971 to 2005. This picture shows sales by quarter. In y-axis we can see the values in dollars, and in x-axis we can see the number of year, which is 2004. Overall we can see the years are including $3,000, $9,000 and $15. So the products are including product Z, product Y, product X. Product Z is in green color, product Y is in blue color, and product X is in orange color. Overall we can see Quarter 2 and Product 2 is giving a major impact, which is around $12,000 in year 2004. The value is higher than the other areas. Sale by quarter is a major impact. This graph shows the life expectancy at birth years in Australia, including the genders, males and females. In y-axis, we can see the number of years, and in x-axis, we can see the number of years as well. Overall, we can see that in 2005, 80 years old males are showing a major impact than females. Overall, we can understand the life expectancy by birth at Australia is more than females. Overall, we can see the males and females are just competing with the age of 85 and 80 years old in 1995. Adult literacy by region. Literacy rates are including by sex and between 2000 to 2004. Sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America and the Caribbean. This picture shows the adult literacy by region, adult literacy rate by sex and the number of years between 2000 to 2004. Number of percentages are shown here, including the major impacts like world, sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America and the Caribbean, Asia and Arab states. Overall, we can see it has been separated with female and male. And also, this picture source is UNESCO Institute of Statistics, accessed online at uis.unesco.org. Overall, we can see male and female are giving a major impact in Latin America. This graph shows the economic conditions in the Philippines between 2000 to 2004. So the number of years are including between 2000 to 2004, and in the number of euros in y-axis we can see between 80 euros to 160 euros. So the consumer price index is going higher since 100 to 120 euros per year. So overall we can see this GDP rate is becoming higher and higher in between 2000 to 2004, which is a major impact in conditions of the Philippines in the consumer pricing index.
Take the coffee industry. The figures are roughly these. The coffee market in the world is worth about 60 billion. The growers get about 5.5 billion. 10 years ago, the market was about 30 billion, and the growers got a third of that. What has happened? What has happened is that well-meaning people, Americans, Germans, Europeans, decided that they would help Vietnam. And so, they created a coffee industry there, which is now the second biggest producer in the world. This has had serious effects on other countries like Colombia that depend on coffee exports.
The speaker was talking about coffee industry. She mentioned coffee market is worth about $60 billion and it has been impacted in $30 billion in market. Well, so that's countries are including Americans, Germans and Vietnams decided to get the coffee industry to their country. They have serious effects. Colombia has the coffee experts. They tried to make coffee in Colombia and they tried to locate the coffee industry in Colombia, but they couldn't. The coffee expert shows the coffee industry is including coffee market and the local market should be well maintained.
You can see that the two charts each give quite a different picture of the performance of boys and girls in the two key subjects of maths and English. It shows that in English, girls consistently outperform boys over a period of 6 years, achieving scores about 10% above their male peers. There is quite a different picture when we look at the maths results, with no real difference between genders in the results. What is the explanation for these key differences? To answer this question, researchers look at biological and cognitive factors and a range of social factors. The interaction between these different components in early childhood development are seen as maintained and reinforced in the school context, and this leads to distinct gender patterns of behavior in skills with direct consequences for school performance and achievement. The argument uses this evidence to show that biological factors, such as patterns of cognitive development, are closely linked to social factors, such as learned gender categories. These cognitive skills are learned both preschool and subsequently at school, supported by the responses of teachers, creating a reinforcement of patterns.
The speaker was talking about the performance of boys and girls in each subjects. He mentioned the English and maths, and the outperform of boys are including 10-year-old male peers and also the different pictures in maths results. So the different pick in measure, no gender differences. So he mentioned that the cognitive and range of social factors are including reinforcing the school context. So the consequences of school performance and achievements. And also he mentioned that he learned gender categories and it is being supported by response of teachers. Overall we can understand speaker was talking about performance of boys and girls by gender.
In our survey, over 100 CEOs who had recently been through an acquisition or merger were asked which areas of their activities needed the most effort. As you can see, the most frequent response to this question was that information technology requires the most integration effort. According to 58% of those we surveyed, IT was the most time-consuming and needed the most work. This is understandable, as many of the IT issues are extremely complex, and the consequences of any change in IT can have a significant impact. The key is how quickly and effectively IT integration can be achieved. And there has to be a clear understanding of the consequences there may be of not getting it right. The two other areas requiring significant attention, sales, marketing and business development on the one hand, and financial management on the other, both were selected by 49% of the respondents.
The speaker was talking about the IT industry and financial managers by getting a survey with the 100 of CEOs. He mentioned the activities needed most efforts are IT. He mentioned that information technology requires effort, and information technology was the most time consuming. And also he was understanding that information technology issues are very complex, and the keys are information technology integration can be achieved. Finally, he mentioned that two other areas are sales and marketing and financial management in this section.
Which country has the third largest population in the UK?
Scotland.
Camels are most likely to be found in what habitat?
In deserts.
On a compass, which direction is the direct opposite of southwest?
Southeast.
What do most successful businesses aim to do? Make a profit, declare bankruptcy, or comply with audits?
Make a profit.
What is it called when the price of goods and services steadily increases over a period of time?
Revenue.
What mistake has the student made when trying to access the site?
Invalid password.
Algebra, calculus, and trigonometry are divisions of which academic field?
Mathematics.
What campus building would you go to if you wanted to borrow a book or magazine?
Library.
Is a profit a loss in funds or a gain in funds?
Gain in funds.
What energy source does this light bulb need in order to function?
Electricity. Read the passage below and summarize one sentence. For economists in the corporate sector, force forecasting is usually key.
It's 10 o'clock.
For economists in the basic. Looks fine. Travel and tourism generates directly and indirectly a large percentage of GDP and a huge number of jobs in the worldwide economy. Moreover, moreover, jobs generated by travel and tourism are spread across the economy, and furthermore, tourism has a comparative advantage in that its startup and running costs cannot be compared to many other forms of industrial development. Easy as, easy as, easy as. The most predominant one stems from the fact that therefore the importance of values of humanities are undeniable. Is therefore the importance of values of humanities is the importance of the means of it can be agreed strongly upon the fact that this matter has some confusing arguments. This is a will reduce interaction with other people and how develop means of communication. This is how it will reduce how means of communication will reduce the interaction with At the outset, there are numerous reasons why means of communications. For instance, researchers in this area invariably shows that The importance of the means of communication, which was always debatable, has now become more controversial. It can be agreed strongly upon the fact that this matter has some convincing arguments. This essay will elaborate how developed means of communication has reduced the relationship and interaction with other people, and how means of communication has been helping people to save time and thus will lead to a reasoned conclusion. At the outset, there are numerous reasons why means of communication has some negative aspects, but the most alarming one lies from the fact that developed means of communication has reduced the relationship and interaction with other people. This can be a contributing factor that many people today trust others and communicate with people without even meeting them physically. For instance, researchers in this area invariably shows that 84% of society today communicate virtually. However, the adverse impact of the means of communication should be ignored. Nevertheless, some people tend to the most relevant one stems from the fact that the developments of communication has been helping save team time to save time, also necessary. As an illustration, findings of some studies reveals that many businesses were developed by using the various means of communication to engage with other companies around the world. Therefore, the importance of means of communication is undeniable. After analyzing the above discussion, it can be concluded that the impact of means of communication is seen. Although the negative aspects should not be overlooked. Although the negative aspects of communication of means of communication should not be overlooked. Don't allow yourself to slip into self-defeating habits such as procrastinating. Try to keep a progression going in your study. Tenaciously. It's not achieving anything. In fact, because it's distracting your way off. Learn to become more relaxed in your daily life. There are simple techniques such as breathing exercise and progressive muscular relaxation as well as allow blocks of scatter blocks of school to work transition is a historical persistent topic of education policy making and reform that impacts national systems of vocational education and training. The transition process refers to a period between completion of general education and the beginning of vocational training. Or the beginning of gainful employment as well as to training system engineering programs that prepare. The status passage of youth from school to work has changed structurally under late modernism, and young people are forced to adapt to changing especially when planning for entry into the labor market.
It's 11 o'clock.
Yes, attention of the results of the art creation process allows. Three degrees does not sound like much, but it predicts a rising. The skull changes when it is 3 degrees hotter. According to the text, what are difficulties in developing a cancer in our The international date line is an imaginary line of the Earth's surface, generally following the meridian of the long, whereby international agreement travelers change dates. The apparent paradox is resolved by requiring that the traveler crossing the date line change his state, thus bringing the travelers into agreement when they meet. For example, if an airplane were to travel westward with the course circle the problem, but it would be still the same day for those in the airplane, while it would be one day later for those on the ground below them. The deadline is to avoid the confusion that would otherwise result. For example, if an Due to increasing people in every organization are pushing themselves to their limits, individuals arrive early to get work done before the phone starts ringing the meetings again. These are signs for management to stop. Due to increasing demands, people in every organization are pushing themselves to their limits. Individuals arrive early to get work done before the phone starts ringing and the meeting begins. Then they stay late to get more work done. These are signs for management to stop raising the performance bar every year, lest their staff become time bankrupt. These are signs for management to stop raising the performance bar every year, lest their staff become more contract. Clearly, they need to avoid this situation because eventually burnt out employees can only have a negative impact on morale. I think so. There's duplicity in Frost's poetry, and there's a certain doubleness in the figure that he. There's duplicity in Frost's poetry, and there's a certain doubleness in the figure that he. Master as I like to think his obsession with double meanings, which has a way of responding to it, which he has impressive expressive meanings which he has as a way of responding to a division in culture between popular and elite, a division that he saw as cause of a division in American culture between money and esteem. In their paper Bioscience, two researchers showed that reintroducing the wolves was What can computer science tell us about what biological systems do and how they do it? Can these chemical information processing functions be replicated? Replicated in digital computing systems? What are the implications of developments in computer science in understanding the nature of query? Hans Hillman, author of the Computer Chain Philosophy. Repeated into the world of connections between ideas developed in computer science, biology, philosophy, providing new insights into some fundamental issue about the nature of consciousness and free will. Providing new insights, philosophy delves into the Another way of looking at personality is the behaviorist approach. According to the behaviorists, the inner experiences are not conscious. Personalities, the personalities. Instead, they believe that our behaviors and therefore our personalities maybe are learned primarily through our the theories of behaviorism arose through experiments largely on animals in which behaviors were learned through carefully controlled stimuli. Another way of looking at personality is the behaviorist approach. According to the behaviors, the inner facts of the consciousness are not important. They believe that our behaviors and therefore our are learned primarily through our experiences. Another way of looking at personality is the behavioral approach. The behavior is the inner facts of the අයියෝ වෙලා තිබිලා නෑ මොකද. The process outline for the submission of papers is mainly intended to address. The process outline for the submission of papers is mainly intended to address which of the following? Assignments being misplaced by university staff, students copying others' work, crowded in classroom at peak time, the vocal living. The outline of the submission is mainly intended to address which of the which you control. Enter the classroom by clicking on the wall. You can't read the text and answer the multiple choice question by selecting the correct response. According to the passage, social scientists are written sources to formulate questions and interview questions, advise them on how to collect qualitative evidence, add information to other data they can collect, change their understanding of numbers.
For the purposes of our course, the way that I think about it, I guess the way I want you to think about it, is generally just the conditions in which a species can survive and reproduce. And those conditions, or the niche, could be determined by water economy, which I'll talk about. That is, the ability of a species to regulate its body water. Its tolerance for temperatures. We saw the Arctic fox out there, frigid cold, and its tolerance for colder temperatures. Its body size, certainly its diet and its circadian and circannual rhythms, its daily behavior activity, its seasonal activity, rhythm of timing, daily circadian and seasonal. Its habitat use, so how it uses the habitat available to it. And of course, its behavior. These are all factors that affect a species, how an animal can survive and reproduce.
Reproduce. The lecture significantly outlined about reproduction of species. It comprises the conditions of which species can survive and reproduce. Furthermore, it illustrated the ability of species to regulate its body water and the body temperature. Also, it elaborated the body size in rhythms and their behavioral activities. Finally, the lecture suggested the habitat is used to identify the behavior of species animals can survive and reproduce. What else I can write here?
The Mayans didn't enjoy their chocolate in the bar form we do now today. It would be over 1,500 years before that happened. Instead, they drank their chocolate. After grinding the cacao seeds into a paste, they would then mix it with water, chili peppers, cornmeal, and other ingredients into a thick, foamy, bitter concoction. Chocolate had a very special place in the Mayan society and was often used for ceremonial purposes. Mayan couples often drank chocolate at marriage ceremonies, and it was offered to the gods. Although chocolate was enjoyed by most social classes in the Mayan society, the Aztecs weren't so lucky. Since most of the Aztec Empire consisted of high, dry land, it was nearly impossible for the cacao tree to flourish. Because of this, the only way for Aztecs to come by chocolate would be to trade for it. The only members of Aztec society that could afford to consume the cacao beans were the merchants and Aztec nobility. However, Aztec society was so obsessed with the product that they actually used it as money. People would actually carry around a pocket full of cacao seeds, much like we do pocket change. In fact, people went so far as to actually counterfeit cacao beans to use as money.
The lecture significantly outlined about chocolates and cocoa beans. It illustrated the recipe of chocolate and how cocoa and chocolates were mixed with water and other ingredients. Furthermore, chocolate was very special among the Mayan societies. They used chocolates in ceremonies such as marriages and Mayan society, such as marriages. And Mayan societies used cocoa beans as a treat. They started to consume cocoa beans. Finally, the lecture comprises that cocoa beans were used as money.
Politicians talk all the time about democracy. Today we're going to learn about the moment of its invention. What sort of time are we talking about?
Well, we can in fact name a specific year, 508 BC. It marked the end of the period of what was called tyranny, or effectively dictatorship by strong families, and the assertion of its will by the people.
How did it happen?
I think people have got pretty fed up with the dictators who've been rather too self-indulgent and not done a terribly good job in the later years. But in a way, these dictatorships were an advance from earlier kingship in many states. So that was one step. But the next step was to spread the base of power and introduce power by the people.
And that's where we come to the word demos, democracy.
Yes, indeed. The demos, the people, it means the community as a whole. We have to be slightly careful, of course, how we define the community in political terms, because it's hard to know how many people there were in Athens at that period. It was a fairly small-scale society, but it's normally reckoned that there was something of the order of 30,000 citizens.
It's 12 o'clock.
The past 2 years have brought more than their fair share of hurricanes, and this season's shaping up to be another big one. This comes after 2 decades of low hurricane activity. How do scientists know what the hurricane season will be like? Why should hurricane prediction be any more accurate than, let's say, your 5-day forecast? Well, we'll try to find out this hour. We'll also talk about El Niño. You know El Niño. It may be coming back because strong El Niño conditions are developing in the tropical Pacific. Will that mean heavy rainfall and mudslides out west, and halt perhaps droughts in parts of Africa and South America?
For many developed countries, the 1980s was a time when the switch from traditional heavy industries and manufacturing to services and information-based enterprise was completed. This led to widespread changes in employment patterns in these countries, as well as having profound social effects. In fact, it isn't going too far to say that there was a basic transformation in the whole culture, which can still be observed today.
Labor believes that there can be benefits from change, but if we're going to have change, it needs to be on the basis that the government has addressed the cost-benefit issues and has addressed the legitimate privacy concerns of Australians. So far, it's failed to address either. In relation to cost-benefit, it claims there will be a saving of the order of $3 billion over 10 years, but it refuses to release the assumptions on which that claim is based. So it simply expects Australians to take it on trust.
What is classical physics? Let's start with the easiest, perhaps. What is physics? Physics is the study of the natural world. It's the study of the physical world, the world we live in. It's experimental science, and it's really the heart, the core of all other experimental sciences. Physics goes beyond just a simple description of nature. It's an attempt to unify a broad variety of phenomena that we observe in the world, both the natural world and the technological world. We're looking for the underlying principles, the explanation, the prediction. We would like to be able to really understand the world around us, measurable things in particular. Physics studies matter and energy, space and time, studies particles and waves, forces and motion. These are a lot of words that we use. We have deep intuitive sense about what those words mean. And part of what we're going to be doing in this course is to start looking carefully at each of these words. What do I mean by energy? What do I mean by force? How would I define that in a laboratory and measure it? And what use is it? How does it help me to understand things about the world?
Hey, Sally. How are you? You all right?
Right, yeah.
Look, I was wondering, did you go to Alan Johnson's lecture on globalisation yesterday?
Of course. And why weren't you there?
I had a bit of a nightmare. My alarm didn't go off, and I just...
Oh, John, that's pathetic.
I know. Was it any good, the lecture?
Well, yeah. No, actually it was. It was quite interesting, but it was a bit complicated. I took some notes, actually.
Fantastic.
Oh, I'm sorry to bother you. I wonder, could you direct me to lecture hall 2B, please?
Yes, of course, but what lecture do you have?
It's sociology, Professor Travers.
Travers. Yeah, we had him last year. He's fantastic.
Oh, really?
He has a tendency to sort of wander around the campus talking to himself, but he's really, really inspirational. You know, he helped Giddens when he was asked to advise the government.
Oh.
Wish we had him this year.
Well, I don't know him. I've not been to any of his lectures so far. You see, I'm just taking sociology as an elective or a subsidiary subject.
Oh, so what are you studying for your major?
Psychology.
I could never fathom psychology.
Oh.
I can hardly say it. It always seemed like literature confusing itself a bit, but I don't know. Anyway, this is all very interesting, but you need to get to...
2B.
2B. All the sociology lectures are in Block B, which is next to the Union building. So, if you go along here and turn right at the end of the path, you'll see the Union building in front of you.
Right.
Block B is on the right as you face the Union.
Well, thank you so much.
Okay.
Maybe see you at one of the lectures. Bye-bye.
Good luck.
The first step was just to see if we had any competitors. There was one company in New Zealand who had a similar idea, but they lacked the branding, I think, which is very important if you're going to be marketing a product properly. The next step was to research the injuries and ailments that surfers suffer whilst they're travelling. That was a pretty easy part considering I'm a surfer myself, but it was also a good idea to get some research and find out how much people were spending on first aid products, what was a popular product to take you with you while overseas, and how much would you be willing to pay for a kit like this.
Scott actually spent a year researching and developing the kit and successfully applied for funding under the Government New Enterprise Incentive Scheme, which supported him for that year. Now, the product's on the market offered through the Natural Footed website, which Scott carefully designed along the same lines as the first aid kit.
The kit had to look professional. It's a medical product, but at the same time it had to have some style to it, and that's what we've tried to go with.
It's quite interesting to think about the glitazones, where we assumed because they reduce blood sugar that they would have beneficial effects on these long-term cardiovascular issues. But now we're finding that with rosiglitazone, they may actually be deleterious, and with pioglitazone, it may be a small benefit. And so the question you ask about the benefit-to-risk ratio is really the critical one today. Should we continue to use these drugs? And I think it's quite difficult with the small amount of information we have to come to a
Is there a moment of panic? I guess that sort of ebbs and flows, because if we get it wrong at any stage, it's pretty out there if you get it wrong. Dealing with the virus.
Their main suspect was a virus. Retroviruses are known to cause cancer.
As far as possible cancer.
Yet no matter how hard they looked, no one could see any sign of viral attack. And there were baffling anomalies. Like, why aren't any devils showing immunity?
We had 10 or 11 pathologists around a microscope with 10 or 11 different opinions about what we were actually dealing with. Yeah, I mean, we were...
A professor is also a member of a profession.
presumably one comparing people who see their discipline as a vocation in its full sense. A vocation, from vocare, to call, is a call. Despite some modern uses which reduce it to the practicalities of employment, practice, and not theory, the product of training, not education, a vocation is less than this. A calling is active as well as passive. It implies a sensation of purpose. There is a duty to be vocal.
You know, the incredible thing about quantum mechanics, there are many incredible things, but one of them, at least to me, is that it really works. It is the theory of the universe. It describes what's going on here on Earth, and it describes what happens in the early universe that Andre studies. And so when we think about how those building blocks that Leon was just describing fit together to make the world around us, we use quantum mechanics to describe atoms, nuclei, molecules, light. It is the theory of the world. And so it's not surprising that we see it in many everyday occurrences and many everyday applications. An example might be the lasers that you see in a compact disc player or the supermarket scanner.
Your role will principally involve development of new chemical processes.
Your role of principal involved.
To gain full marks, an appropriate bibliography is required.
To gain full marks, an appropriate bibliography is required.
The integration of architecture studies with community projects is widely encouraged. The integration of architecture studies with community projects is widely encouraged. The integration architecture studies with community projects is widely encouraged. The integration architecture studies with community project is widely encouraged. The integration architecture studies. The integration of architecture studies with community project is widely encouraged. That's it. So thank you guys for looking at this exam. So I hope this helped for you to understand. There should be many errors from me. So because this is my first time doing an exam, so try to correct yourself. So I'm not saying that I have put all the answers correctly. Thank you for watching, and I'll publish the results very soon in the comment section. Thanks, guys.